She was stopped at this red light when the suspect, armed with a handgun, jumped in the passenger side of the car. Smith drove east on 49 for 5 miles when the gunman ordered her to get out of the car.
Please bring him home.
Agents in bulletproof vests combed the woods where the possible suspect resided.
We can only hope and pray that the man who took our precious babies from us returned them safely.
She said a stranger took her kids. America believed her, but the truth was far more horrifying than anyone could imagine. In the quiet town of Union, South Carolina, a story unfolded that would shock the nation and leave an indelible mark on the hearts of millions. It was a tale of deception, tragedy, and the unfathomable depths of a mother's despair. On October 19, 1994, Susan Smith reported a horrifying crime. A black man had carjacked her at gunpoint, taking her 2 young sons, Michael and Alexander, with him.
I was stopped at a red light, and just out of nowhere, this black guy came up and just opened the door and jumped in the car. And he had a gun, and he had it pointed in my side and told me to drive, and so I did. And when I tried to ask him why he was doing this or whatever, he just told me to shut up or he'd kill me.
The community rallied around her, praying for the safe return of the boys. But as days turned into weeks, the search for the children continued and doubts began to surface about Susan's story. What followed was a revelation that would shatter the image of a grieving mother and expose a darkness that few could comprehend. This is the story of Susan Smith, a case that captivated America and raised questions about love, loss, and the human psyche. But the truth was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. This is Betrayal at the Lake, the Susan Smith story. Susan Lee Vaughn was born on September 26, 1971, in Union, South Carolina. Raised in a middle-class family, she was described as a shy but diligent child who excelled in school and was active in her church. Her father, Beverly Russell, was a successful businessman, and her mother, Linda, was a homemaker. At 18, Susan married David Smith, a grocery store manager, and together they had 2 sons, Michael Daniel, born in 1991, and Alexander Tyler, born in 1993. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Susan and David's marriage was strained. They were estranged, living separately, and Susan had begun a relationship with another man, Tom Finley, a wealthy local man. Finley, however, made it clear he did not want children, a fact that would later play a chilling role in this tragedy. Friends and family described Susan as a devoted mother, but those close to her noticed signs of distress. She struggled with depression, particularly after the births of her sons, and felt overwhelmed by her circumstances. Susan's postpartum depression went untreated, and her emotional turmoil grew. On the evening of October 19, 1994, Susan Smith drove her Mazda protege to John D. Long Lake with Michael, aged 3, and Alexander, just 14 months old, strapped in their car seats. What happened next would shock the nation. Susan claimed she had been carjacked at a red light by a black man who fled with her children still in the car.
Susan Smith was driving up Highway 49 to a friend's house at about 9 o'clock last night. She was stopped at this red light when the suspect, armed with a handgun, jumped in the passenger side of the car and ordered her to shut up and drive.
Pray every day that you're taking care of them, and know that we will do anything we will to help you to get them home back to us. I just can't express it enough.
The community mobilized, with search parties scouring the area and law enforcement launching an extensive investigation. For 9 agonizing days, Union County and the entire nation held its breath, hoping for the safe return of Michael and Alexander. But as the search dragged on, cracks began to appear in Susan's story. Investigators noticed inconsistencies in her account. No witnesses had seen the carjacking, and her description of the perpetrator was vague. Meanwhile, Susan's behavior raised eyebrows. she seemed too composed for someone whose children had been abducted. On October 28, 1994, 9 days after the alleged carjacking, Susan Smith broke down. In a tearful confession, she revealed the horrifying truth: there had been no carjacking. Instead, she had driven her car to John D. Longlake, rolled it into the water with her son still inside, and watched as it sank beneath the surface. The nation was stunned. The woman who had been the object of sympathy and support was now revealed as the perpetrator of an unthinkable act. Susan's false accusation of a black man added fuel to the fire, sparking outrage and deepening racial tensions in the community.
I got some calls from people in Boston this morning, and they expressed the sentiment also of what we're feeling around here, how everyone is just ready to believe and pin a crime on black people, and that's not necessarily the case all the time.
That was time that I wanted to go fishing, but hey, I couldn't get caught, going fishing. That was time that I wanted to go hunting. I couldn't go hunting. What if a black man would have got caught in the woods hunting with a gun?
Divers recovered Susan's car from the lake, with Michael and Alexander's bodies still strapped in their car seats. The autopsy revealed that the boys had been alive when the car entered the water, drowning as it sank. The image of the toddlers, surrounded by teddy bears in the backseat, haunted the nation. Susan Smith's trial began in July 1995. The prosecution, led by Tommy Pope, portrayed her as a cold-blooded killer who had murdered her children to free herself for a new life with Tom Finley. The defense, led by attorneys David Bruck and Judy Clark, argued that Susan suffered from mental health issues, including depression and suicidal tendencies, which impaired her judgment. The trial was emotionally charged, with powerful testimony from both sides. Tom Finley testified that he had ended his relationship with Susan because he did not want to be a stepfather, a statement that underscored the prosecution's motive. Susan herself took the stand, tearfully expressing remorse but struggling to explain her actions. After a highly publicized trial, Susan was found guilty on 2 counts of murder. On July 28, 1995, she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. As she was taken away, the community of Union began the long process of healing, but the scars of this case would never fully fade. Sadly, this wouldn't be the last time a mother's mental health struggles would lead to an unthinkable tragedy. If this case disturbed you, you won't want to miss our next video on Andrea Yates, a heartbreaking story of a mother overwhelmed by postpartum psychosis who did the unimaginable. The Susan Smith case left an indelible mark on Union County. The town, once known for its tight-knit community, was torn apart by grief, anger, and racial tension. Susan's false accusation of a black man fueled distrust and division, with many in the black community feeling unfairly targeted. In November 2024, Susan Smith appeared before the parole board for the first time.
That I'm sorry that I put them through that. I really, really am. And I'm especially sorry to the drivers that I had to find them. I wish I could take that back. I really do. I didn't lie to get away with it. I really didn't. I was just scared. I didn't know how I could tell the people that loved them that they would never see them again. I didn't know how I could tell David he couldn't see his son again.
Despite her pleas for forgiveness and claims of remorse, the board unanimously denied her parole, citing the severity of her crime and her lack of genuine contrition. Susan remains incarcerated at Leath Correctional Institution in South Carolina, eligible for another parole hearing in 2 years. Her case continues to spark debate about justice, redemption, and the limits of forgiveness. The Susan Smith case serves as a tragic reminder of the fragility of the family unit and the devastating consequences of unchecked despair. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How could a mother commit such an act? And what does it say about our society that allows such tragedies to occur? Today, Michael and Alexander Smith are remembered not for how they died, but for the joy they brought to those who loved them. Their story is a cautionary tale, one that we must never forget. As we reflect on this case, we are left with more questions than answers. How could a mother commit such an act? The story of Susan Smith is a cautionary tale, one that we must never forget. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next true crime episode.